Hello, welcome to Lancashire, to Turf Moor here in Burnley. You can see some lovely hills rolling in the background, and that's been one of the enjoyable facets of this afternoon. Unfortunately, a lovely sunny day here, but unfortunately Norwich have lost 2-0 to the Clarets. It's been one of the down parts of the roller coaster, I suppose you could say, from the ridiculous high of beating the champions last weekend, winning 3-2 at home at Carrow Road against Manchester City. It's a 2-0 defeat here against Burnley, and there was always that danger that this was going to be, as my colleague Paddy Davitt described it in our podcast at the end of last weekend, that this could be after the Lord Mayor's show, that sort of anti-climax. And it was the total polar opposite of the game against Manchester City, where you had two attacking teams who focus on their passing, want the possession of the football, and there was always that danger that Burnley were going to be able to hit Norwich hard in the attack, particularly in the air, with all the injury problems that they have, with Ben Godfrey and Ibrahim Amadou continuing in central defence as they did today, an unchanged starting 11 from Daniel Farke. And it came pretty quickly, unfortunately. There was a chance for Norwich. Timu Pukki squeezed his way in behind the Burnley back line, showed a good bit of strength to hold off James Tarkowski, who of course has been in England squads. Went through one-on-one against Nick Pope, again, an England international, but the Burnley goalkeeper put out a big left foot, stopped that shot from getting through to his goal, and the deflection, fortunately for Burnley, was into space. No Norwich player could pick it up. So at that point, it looked okay, but the atmosphere here was superb. It was exactly, not to the same levels, but it was like Carrow Road was against Manchester City in terms of the home fans were really on top of the Norwich players. They were calling for every 50-50, everything they thought should have been going their way, and Burnley just went for the jugular from early doors, really, and both goals were kind of typical Burnley goals, the ones that you'd expect them to do, but they do it so well. I don't think you should disrespect Burnley, because they are making the most of what they've got, and they're in their fourth season in the Premier League. They finished 7th 2 seasons ago to get into the Europa League, so you really shouldn't knock Burnley, because they are, as Daniel Farke said ahead of this game, they're full of determination. They get the absolute most out of themselves, and they worked their socks off. They pressed Norwich from minute one. When the ball was being played short at goal kicks and things like that, they were on Norwich straight away. Dwight McNeil, their young winger, who's England under-21 international, he was sort of epitomising that early doors. He was closing down Ibrahim Amadou and Sam Byram in the right-back area from Norwich's point of view, and preventing Norwich getting out of their half. That was how frustrating it was to watch. Norwich were very much second best in this one, so it really is a lurch from a high to not too much of a low, because at the start of this season, would we have said, yeah, Burnley away from home, that's one Norwich should win? If it was at Carrow Road, possibly different, possibly. Not that it really should be, but you can't really come to Burnley, a place where Sean Dyche has been in charge for a long time and has really got them well organised, and expect to win. So just to go through the goals, the first came in the 10th minute. It came from a corner, and Ashley Westwood whipped in an absolutely gorgeous corner, really powered it to the near post, and Wood reacted quicker than Kenny McLean and Tim Krul and nodded it in at the near post. That's 1-0, and Norwich at that point, frankly, unfortunately, were looking like rabbits in the headlights. They were looking a bit shocked, and the second goal came within 4 minutes, and it was Wood again, his second of the day. Hadn't scored before today, but he did score 10 Premier League goals last season, former Leeds striker, New Zealand international, and this time it was from a Dwight McNeil cross from the left. Sam Byram got caught out of position a little bit. Amadou went across to try and cover for the right back, couldn't stop the cross coming in from McNeil, and Wood gets across Ben Godfrey, which unfortunately seems to be a bit of a chink in the armoury for Ben. One of the times that several times we've seen players get across Ben, reacting to that danger first, but that probably emphasises the fact that he's still a young man. He's 21, he's still learning his trade as a centre-back, but we've all seen the potential that is there, so you can let him off to a certain extent, but it does seem to be a weakness in his game, and Wood gets there and is able to poke past Tim Krul from close range, and there you have it. It's 2-0. This place is absolutely rocking. They're well on top of Norwich. Jamal Lewis took a swing and a miss on the left side. Ball went out for a throw-in, and they absolutely loved that. And then they got on top of Jamal, young player, and to be honest, I don't think it distracted him too much. If anything, he was perhaps trying a little bit too hard when he was going forward in the attack, but I thought he responded pretty well and was probably along with Mo Leitner, one of the better players for Norwich today, but they were, every time Jamal was on the ball, they were getting on top of him. So it was that kind of atmosphere. It was quite aggressive. They were calling for everything. Amadou did get booked in the first half for a crunching tackle on McNeil, and he did live dangerously a couple of times in the second half, particularly one with James Rodriguez, who came off the bench. Quite late on, he was braking essentially, and Amadou was caught the wrong side of him and brought him down on halfway, but the referee decided to let him off, and I thought that was going to be a second yellow, and he was going to go. Mo Leitner, as I say, he came on early for Alex Tettey. I think it was between the two goals, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think it was in the 13th minute, and Tettey went down. He's had this calf problem. I think that is probably what is wrong with him. I haven't heard Daniel Farke's verdict on that just yet, because he hadn't come through to speak to the media when I was just downstairs after speaking to Leitner. So Leitner came on, and he did hit the post in the first half with a cracking shot, 25 yards. Keeper was beating all ends up, but it hit the left post and bounced away. Buendia couldn't get anywhere near it, and that, along with that early Pookie chance, were the big chances. The second half, Todd Cantwell had one shot well blocked behind by Matt Lowson, the right back. Leitner also hit one from, it was between us and the away fans really. There's 2,300 Norwich fans that made the trip up here, sold out the away end, and from where they were sitting, it must have looked like Leitner had scored initially, but unfortunately it was right-footed from the right side of the D on the edge of the box, so the ball just curled away from that far post, and that would have still been with time to spare to chase an equaliser, but it didn't happen for Norwich, frankly, and I don't think they were probably worth a point today, sadly. They did finish with 59% possession. They did have 11 shots on goal, but only 2 of them were on target. I think it was Burnley had 6 of their 12 were on target, so it was everything that we feared it might be. It was direct, it was ugly at times, but it's effective, isn't it? And that's what's keeping Burnley in the Premier League, and unfortunately has set Norwich back today. Patrick Roberts did get a late Premier League debut for Norwich. Of course, he was ineligible against his parent club last weekend. That was very late though, 90th minute. I think he came on for Todd Cantwell, and nothing that Norwich did could really affect it too much, because Burnley sat off in the second half and invited them on, but stayed very much in their 2 solid lines, midfield and defence. Didn't leave much space to play with at all. The fullbacks tucked in, and Norwich just couldn't squeeze it through any of the gaps really. There were several times when it looked like they might just slip someone in. Byram, Cantwell, Buendia had several chances along those lines, but there was always a Burnley foot there to prevent the ball getting through, and from preventing Nick Pope from facing too much really. A Pookie snapshot which didn't trouble him overly, and the day was probably summed up by Emi Buendia punching the ground after a Leitner pass didn't quite find him in the box, but he saw a fair amount of the ball. He did receive the ball in the box a couple of times and just got crowded out. They know what they're doing, Burnley, and defensively they're so strong, and unfortunately we all leave here feeling a little bit disappointed, and knowing that there's another away game. All of a sudden Crystal Palace away doesn't look quite so winnable. In the high of this week and the build up to come in here, of course, everyone was on cloud 9 really, on the back of that huge landmark victory over Manchester City, and Stuart Webber signing his new contract this week. But back down to earth with a bump, quite literally. So there we go. We head to Crystal Palace next weekend and see whether Norwich's style will work against them. They again are a very different style to Burnley. Wilf Zaha, of course, is a hugely influential player for them, and is probably someone who could play at a higher level. Very nearly did leave them this summer, I think I'm right in saying. Did have a spell at Manchester United that didn't work out. Has been linked with clubs like Paris Saint-Germain. So, on his day, Wilfried Zaha is almost unplayable. But can Norwich control it? Can they choke the game out of Palace, really? Control possession enough that they don't lose control of the game like this, because Selhurst Park can be quite a rowdy place as well. So although I don't think off the top of my head that Palace have a particularly great home record, that we've got all week to build up to that one. I guess it's about not getting too downhearted. It's only 6 games into the season. Norwich could finish the weekend in the relegation zone if Villa and whoever the other team is below them that needs to win their game. I can't remember off the top of my head, but Sheffield United won 2-0 at Everton today, so that's a disappointing one from Norwich's point of view, and just to emphasise Manchester City as well, they absolutely slapped Watford 8-0 at the Etihad. So I think somebody may have wound up Mr Guardiola. Daniel Farke can probably take a bit of the credit for that. They won at 3-0 at Shakhtar Donetsk in midweek in the Champions League as well. So the Premier League adventure continues. We always knew this wasn't going to be easy, and I'm sure Daniel and all the players, and as Mo Leitner was very calm when we spoke to him then, it's going to be about them not panicking over a result like this. Not every game in the Premier League is like going to Burnley. That's why they managed to continue to survive at this level. But we head to Palace to see whether the style will work next week, and then it's home, back to Carrow Road the following week for a game against Aston Villa, which is really one that Norwich will need to be winning, frankly, to keep on course. Two promoted sides, that's going to be a real crunch clash, I would imagine, even though that will only be 8 games into the season. Thanks for watching. Head over to pinkun.com for the full reaction report and analysis. We will be recording a podcast before we head home to Norfolk. Long drive ahead of us tonight, and we'll get that out to you before Monday as well, and we will catch up with you later in the week.